Alright, so my name is Emmanuel, and I would like to ask you, how would you describe Damien in 3 words?
Damien in 3 words. Inspirational, thoughtful, and gentle.
Thank you.
Hello and welcome to another episode of a Soulshine Conversation. I am your host, Mr. Soulshine. I'm so excited to be here this morning. Before we get started with all my wonderful people, I want to tell you to make sure that you please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Hit the little button, the bell, it's right there. Do it. It'll keep you updated on everything that we're doing around the Soulshine movement. All right, guys, welcome.
Welcome.
I'm so excited to have my people here today. We are at Uncle Bobby's. Yes. We call it the already famous Uncle Bobby's here in Philadelphia. And a big thank you to the owner, Mr. Mark Lamont Hill, for allowing us this space today. I'm so excited to have you guys here. We've got some returning faces and a lot of new faces. So I'm excited. Last time we talked about how long do you wait in your relationship to make the move. So whether it's marriage, whether it's moving in together, but a big significant move. And we had quite a lot of dialogue about that as well. So if you guys haven't watched that, make sure you go back and watch episode 1. So today I thought we would go back a little bit, and before we even get into marriage, before we get into the relationship, I thought we could talk about dating. And kind of what that process is like. I think we've talked about the ships that happen, Netflix and chilling and all those fun things. But I'll let you guys get into that. So let me give you a little backstory because you guys know I live for backstory. So I did a little research, and Time Out magazine, I believe, conducted a survey in 2015. They surveyed 11,000 people, and out of that 11,000, the average person said that after 6 dates, and that equated to maybe a month or 2 months, depending on your frequency of dating, one particular person, that's when you decide to become monogamous. Or this is your person where I'm not going to date anyone else. So the actual quote says, after 6 dates, for many it falls in line with they will be committed to one person. So my question today is 6 dates enough? Is that enough to vet the person, to really get to know them? Do you make that decision to become monogamous after 6 dates?
I didn't know I ever dated, to be honest with you, so I can't say that 6 is enough.
Okay.
I didn't know that I was dating until after I was married, because what I was doing was, I just thought I was just going out, we were hanging out. So it could have been 5, 6, 12, 9, I never really put a number on it. My wife kind of explained to me that when you're going out and you're going and having dinner and going to the movies, that's actually a date. I never coined it as such. I was just saying, oh, you want to go out? Sure, let's go out, let's go eat. So I can't say that 6 would be enough because again, for me, I was just going out. I don't know how many times we went out. We went out probably way more than 6 times before we decided that this was going to be, the relationship. But again, I didn't know I was dating.
Air quotes?
Yeah, I didn't know I was dating.
But you know you're married.
No. I'm not married. I'm just married. I'm not married. I'm actually married. That's different.
He's just like, no, we're married.
I stand firm on that one.
Yeah, please.
But yeah, 6 dates, I don't know. It depends on the person. I would think that more women probably kind of chimed in on that poll.
I think it's depends on what you call dating. See, black people we got a thing called talking. We just talking.
Yeah.
You know what
Do you want to put that in the air quotes?
So we just talking because somebody else might call that a date. And it depends. So if you start counting 1 to 6 from those talkings, you can get 10, 12. You can get there pretty quick.
So what's occurring during these talkings?
Yeah.
Um,
Do you have kids?
Going to dinner.
Married.
Going to the movies.
So in my experience as a dating with dating is women's approach is usually different from mine. A woman's approach is usually interviewing me, right? So she's asking those questions like, what are your goals? What do you want to do? Even if she doesn't ask it directly, she's asking you, you know what the subtext is, right? So, but and it also depends on where you are in your life and what stage of your life you are. So sometimes dating and what the goal, ultimately what you want it to be, like, because if she's a woman, she might want a marriage, right? She may want to have a family at a certain age, and you might not want to be alone tonight.
That's also true.
So that sometimes it depends on what the goals are, in terms of what the conversation is.
But
right?
is that a date? I don't want to be alone tonight.
You have to ask those two parties though.
No, it is not. It is not. I don't want to be. I was answering David's question. Not no, it is not. It's not. You know what? I think you're right though. I think talking and dating is two different. I think it's cultural because we don't really see it that way. I mean, I remember when B and DC were dating, so like I don't remember. I mean, but it became more of a thing. Like they were more exclusive to each other, so that kind of happened. You know what I mean? Even though I don't even think DC saw it that way ever, but we met in college, so you know, I don't think it becomes that. And people ask me, actually, B and B just had this conversation like an hour ago. Like dating has to be a thing, like where it has to be defined now, because if you're my friend on social media and then we take a picture together, you tag me, that's now dating. That's dating now. You're dating now. You know what I mean? Like I feel like there's so much pressure behind, you know, what is supposed to be correct now and what is supposed to be, you know, you seeing somebody and how deep it goes, because it's not official until it hits some side of social media or unless everybody knows that that's what's going on. And I'm not from that era.
Right.
Because if that's the case, I'm dating everybody in this room.
Yeah, right.
I've taken a picture with all of you.
Right. And you can't.
But aren't you?
Right. And we
all
married each other. I can't get down with what people nowadays call dating. I just, you know, and you know, my daughter actually, who's 18, she brought this up to me that, Mommy, he dates me. The guy that she's seeing, she's like, he dates me, like he takes me out. And knowing that she knows that word, I guess, and in that, you know, culture, I was like, I did kind of good then, huh? You know what I mean? Like, because she saw the difference in the value in somebody actually taking her outside, actually taking her to dinner, actually, you know, spending time with her more than just it being a thing where we just see each other and this my girl, that's my joint. You know what I mean? Like instead of it being that, she took it to another level, which is cool. And do I think it's going to last? Of course, nothing lasts forever. But I'm glad she knows the difference between just seeing somebody and somebody actually claiming you, and you know, just because I think that's how it happens nowadays.
And it's funny, I agree with you, and I know for myself, like when you're in, you say 6 dates, well, it's going to take me 3 days to do your background check.
Right.
So I need to know who you are.
I need a social security. I need a baby mama.
You know what I mean? So 3 dates, I'm still asking the investigator what else came back.
It's not gonna take 3. Women will do that in one day, even before it starts.
Yeah, but
One.
you might be in
Right.
other states too.
How about
So, you know, when you meet people, seriously, like if you're meeting somebody, say like on a Plenty of Fish or something like that, right? They have your profile open so that they want to meet people in New York, and so you really don't know if they're living this other life. So for me, 6 dates is, it's probably going to be more like 12.
Which is why I think people need to have a conversation, like an honest conversation, casual, honest. I mean, I'm talking about while we are going out for cocktails or something like that. Let's just talk about what your likes and dislikes and your wants are. Don't front for me, I won't front for you. I mean, that's just the bottom line, but I think for the most part, people hold back because they don't want to shy the other person away, or really just don't want to bring their true self to form. But I always say, like, just go have a good time, and I trust you. You will know if you want to be with that person after 1 day.
But we also, like you said, I guess to your point of honesty, don't even really talk about if it's a date or not. Sometimes we have this intriguing thing, and this phenomenon. Clearly, I'm the wrong person to ask. I've been happily single for years, so I get it wrong all the time. And I'm a man of a certain age that I get it wrong. Like, you know, are we dating? I don't even care about asking the question because I'm not even really interested. Because sometimes, you know, you have this concept of dating with a purpose, and you know, sometimes you just want to kick it. You want to get to know. You want to build or establish at least a respectable amount of rapport. You want to talk. You want to get to, you know, you find something in somebody else that you like, and you want to vibe with them. You know, but like I said, me, I get it wrong a lot. You know, I get accused of leading on and to this and that, and anyway, we were talking about happy things. You know, so I guess to answer the question, I don't know if 6 is enough. Sometimes, you know, maybe 2 or 3 would probably be enough for me to know. You know, I know automatically before you date anybody, you know, and you go out, you sort of have these judgments and evaluations about a person, you know, initially and all of that, you know, so it only takes a few times, you know, and I know I don't want to be in a relationship, so the whole dating thing, you know, it might not necessarily work out for somebody like me.
But it probably is more along the lines of really just having that conversation about, you might want to hang out, but you're not necessarily interested in moving on to something different.
Long-term commitment.
Exactly, at this time, right? But other people are, obviously, as someone has already pointed out. But what I'm thinking is that what is usually happening is people aren't actually discussing what that means for each other. And so it has become such a taboo where you don't really want to talk about whatever it is that you're talking about. And so we have felt like, oh no, I can't really say what my intentions are for fear of whatever. And so you're afraid to express what your emotions are because we weren't taught to talk about feelings. You're afraid to actually talk about what the future is going to look like because we were never taught to communicate as a society. And so now you're in these ships, whatever the definition of these ships are, and you're with these people and you've never actually determined if you're traveling at the same pace, and you've never determined if you're traveling in the same direction.
I do agree. I feel as though Brian can't put a time limit on it because it was something we never discussed. However, at some point you do realize that the person that you're dealing with, you are connected in a specific way, and I think that connection happens organically. I don't always feel like a discussion needs to happen, and I think a lot of women fall into this trap, and they're not able to enjoy what's going on because they're so after the definition, like they're chasing the definition.
They got the timeline.
They're like, I'm 35, I should have had 2 kids already. What are we doing? And you don't get to enjoy the person. You really aren't taking the time to get to know them because you are chasing whatever it is that you want to define your relationship with. And I think it's very unfair to the Jacks of the world who they just want to enjoy time with somebody. And I think as women, we do pressure ourselves to be in a relationship. Brian and I didn't get married for a very long time because interestingly, I have issues with marriage as a married person. So it did take us a while to even get to that point, but I enjoyed the moments we had together, and I enjoyed getting to know him long enough to say this is somebody that I want to be with.
You know, real quick, I just wanted to say thank you, right? So I felt good about the Jacks of the world. But I also want to say that the Jacks of the world also need to get their existence in order, right? And be a little bit more clear about their communication when engaging in some type of date concept or relationship. Now, we're talking about dating yourself. I need much more than 6, many more than 6 times, you know, to like, you know, get to know yourself and cherish yourself and, you know, and love yourself and all of that. But thank you for that. And I also just wanted to kind of just piggyback by saying that, you know, folks like myself also can afford to be more clear and really kind of clearly define like what is going on, you know, because that is not something I've mastered. You know, I love people, you know, and all of that. And, you know, sometimes things just kind of happen. So it's not like I'm treating life frivolously, honestly, because I mean, I'm also, you know, like I said, experienced enough to kind of make it clear, but sometimes I don't do that.
Don't you think, though, it's based on age and maturity? I mean, if you think about it, when we got together, we were relatively young. So at that time, I'm not really, especially as a black man, I'm really not thinking about the future. I'm not thinking, oh, in 5, 6, 7 years, this is where I'm going to be. Although right now, I do have a 3, 5, 10. As an adult, I have a 3, 5, 10. Right. As a 20-year-old, I didn't have a 2-year plan. So.
Didn't have a tomorrow plan.
Right, I did. I was literally living for the moment. So if I don't have that in my mindset, and actually I don't think she did either, but it's no way that I can discuss or have an ongoing conversation about where I plan to be in this relationship in 4 dates, 3 dates, 5 years. I don't have that ability to do so. So you really at those times focus on the commonalities, right? So what do we have in common? So we're gonna vibe on that. Oh, you like this type of movie? I like that type of movie too. Oh, you like that type of music? I like that type of music too. And then that's how you start to build your bond. It's not until that bond is actually built a little bit to where you decide to then start discussing other things. So it's not really fair to say across the board you need to have those conversations in the beginning. As an adult, yes. As a what I used to call as a kid a grown up, which I am now. As a grown up, yeah, you can have those conversations because if you're dating at a certain age, you already know this is where I intend to be in a certain amount of years. Right. Whether you're in Jack's position or whether you're in our position, you know, we know where we're going or where we would like to be in the next few years, right? So if I'm 20-year-old B, I can't say, I want to, this is where I didn't even see myself getting married until I was like 40. So granted, I wanted to be married at some point in time. But I couldn't see it at that moment, again, because I didn't have a tomorrow plan. But it's not really fair to say, you should have those conversations up front, because that's not what you're, now, to Jack's point, if I go out with you once, and if I deem you to be not smart or not bright, we're never going to go out again.
Absolutely.
Ever again. So if there are certain criteria that I have, that ends it right there. Like, oh, okay, yeah, I can't, you know, go on any further. But the dates part, going back to the original question, I don't think, and maybe it is, listening to everybody's conversation, that it's cultural. We don't really put a dating, we don't really say we're going out on dates. Because everybody's kind of echoed that for the most part, especially the men, that we don't go out on dates. We're going to hang out, we're talking, we're just going out to have something to eat. And there's never really, we never really say we're going out on a date. Hey, can I take you out on a date? Oh, what I was told, let's have coffee. I don't drink coffee, but I'll go with you. Now that could be considered a date. To me, it wasn't. I was just going
a coffee date.
Yeah. Nope.
You didn't like that word.
I was like that word. Because I didn't define it as such.
Right. You don't even know if you like that person.
Right.
Can I like you? I mean, can I before I start? Can you
I gotta like you first before I can date you.
I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of in the grown up part of what you were talking about. Like, I don't want to date anybody. Like, we just go somewhere first, and I'm like, we have a conversation. Can I know that you know more than ABC? Like, I need to know these things. Like, and so like this whole concept of, and I'm very upfront in the beginning. Like, listen. Don't get attached. Don't get so I'm brutally honest. I've always been brutally honest, and I just think that you need to know who I am when you meet me. And whether or not you like my honesty, that might take you away, but you know what I'm saying. But it doesn't make me any less of who I am, because I'm not going to change that. I have been through very, very bad situations. I've been through difficult situations. And I feel as if though people need time to heal from those situations before they decide they want to dedicate themselves. So now, as a 42-year-old Steph, I know that I can't go out and date somebody right this moment, because I have issues in my life that need to be resolved. I don't need another issue.
Can I jump on that? Because I think a lot, because everyone who's made a comment, even if they haven't said it directly, there is this undercurrent of age, right? And so when you're in your 20s, you really just might want to have a good time and Jack has had maybe an elongated period of time where you're just trying to engage people, and I'm not here to analyze or
sounds like it.
But I've been in similar situations, right? So I understand what it's like. So I understand that when you're in that place, you need something. And if you're with somebody who's compatible, then y'all might go through that phase together, and then it'll extinguish, and then something else can emerge after that.
Yeah, awesome. All right, we'll pause for a second. So great dialogue so far, guys. I knew I picked the right people to come today. Like, I love it. And listen, the behind the scenes foot, never mind. We'll talk about it later. So, as we're talking about dating, I want to ask a question. I don't necessarily want to take us on a different path, but I think it relates still to dating. And we've kind of been discussing this behind the scenes. And a little selfishly for me, this is a conversation I've had for years with my friends. So we talk about, and I think someone alluded to it earlier, the representative. So I think, you know, when you first meet someone and you're dating, you know, you put your best foot forward, as most people do. You might do an extra little polish on your shoe or so forth and so on. But I think sometimes that representative, I'm not sure if they are ever unmasked. And I think that also can cause some sort of challenges, can lead to a conversation, so forth and so on. And I think, you know, someone spoke about having a representative at work, with their kids, with so forth and so on. But let's talk about that representative. Is that true? Does he or she show up? And then when do we let her or him go?
Yeah, they show up. They're always and they show out. They do.
It's a job interview.
Is it? Hey, how are you? That's
right.
Hey. When you get it, hey, all right, what's going on? That's the true person. But in a relationship, it happens too. People, you know, put their best foot forward. I remember having a conversation with, you know, you're in a relationship and you're saying, so where do you see yourself in 3 to 5 years? And they give you the representative answers. And then 3 to 5 years later, you like, none of this is going on. Let me revisit the questions again. And then at that point, I think it's time for you to make a decision what you want to do. Do you want to stay or do you want to go? That's what I feel about that representative. Once the representative shows up and shows you what they are, why are you staying? What's the pros and cons behind that?
Mm-hmm. Can I jump in?
Please.
So, I personally don't like that term representative because I think it sort of alludes to someone being disingenuous. And I don't necessarily believe that's the case. I believe that, you know, as you said, you want to put your best foot forward. And I think a lot of it has to do with what we say and what we mean can be different. So I know, for instance, when I met my wife, she and I had very in-depth conversations about what we wanted. And so we talked about specifically what we wanted, but then we found out from each other over time that we did want those things, but the way that we saw those things were different. And so it wasn't that she misrepresented herself or I misrepresented myself, it was just that we had very different definitions and outlooks on those things. So for instance, there was a big emphasis on family. And so I don't have any parents, I don't have any siblings. So for me, having a family meant having children, getting married, having children. Well, she already had children. She already had an extended family that she went to Sunday's dinner with every week. So in her mind, her family that existed already was important. You know what I mean? I was trying to create a family so that it could be important. So that it wasn't that we didn't have the conversation. We had the conversation, but how you define those terms behind it really matters. Because then you'll find later on that once that concept, that issue is challenged, or you think it's challenged, then things rise to the surface. And so we go back to saying, oh, this person represented themselves as this, when you don't necessarily understand that the language that you were communicating at that time may not have been exactly like synchronized. You know what I mean? Like I did not mean what you meant. I meant family, but what you meant for family, we had to look at the history behind that to understand it. And sometimes, like, it's just a reflection of how much you know about yourself. You know what I mean? And so, because everything that you want has to do with that. You know what I mean? So
that representative is dope to me. I think and I like the concept of a representative, especially like when you're initially like, don't front like if you're dating, right? Like that the initial phases aren't fun, right? You're learning, right? We're all sort of inquisitive and things like that, but that representative to me sometimes, and I do like the term represent, right? Because it means you're representing yourself. We're multifaceted people, right? We don't just have this, you know, like this hood thing going on where we're hiding and, you know, we got this representative that's like protecting it and all that, or we could have that, right? But the idea to me is that sometimes initially, you know, if you represent yourself or sort of represent yourself with vulnerability and you're like, oh my gosh, you know, like, and I'm fully open and I'm authentic, blah, 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 right? Or whatever, right? Or you could be one of those people that's just very guarded or whatever. However you present yourself really tells a lot to me initially. So, you know, I like the representative, and I like cutting through, you know, and unpacking the onion and, you know, the layers and all of that, and getting to know a little other sides as well. But like I said, we're multifaceted, you know, so.
Right.
I will say this. So, you always, well, I shouldn't say you. I attempt always to give my most authentic self. That may not always be the case, because the people who really know the most authentic you are, and we was talking about this offline, are only the people who've lived with you. The only reason why, because you leave the house, as soon as you step out of that door, you're giving some sort of different representation of yourself. Because, right, because I go to work, I'm this person. I went to school, I was this person. You know, you're going to get portions of my most authentic self, but not to say that I do this, but you're not going to see that I got dirty socks in the corner of the room and that type of stuff. You're not going to see that. You see me, you're going to think, oh, he's the most well kept, he's clean, and you would never know about this stuff that's, you know, in the household. So you do your best to give most people, I believe, do their best to give their most authentic self when they're meeting people, especially in relationships. But the other thing that happens is that you grow, you change. So those things that you wanted when you guys first met, and you're telling me you're giving me the representative, air quotes for you. So when you give me the representative, that may have been what I wanted. Now we're 3 years down the line. I've now grown. My thought processes have changed. That's no longer what I wanted. Now what I want. So, but the problem is, but listen, it's not that it's not that I've given you something that was not me at the time.
No, absolutely.
I gave you what exactly was me. But now I'm 3 years older. I was 29. Now I'm 32. My goals have changed. So if you want to revisit the conversation, no. See what happened was I wanted that then, or so I thought. Now I'm here. And then you said you're already ordered and you're blocked. That's it. No, but why? I've grown. Have you not grown? Do you not want growth?
You want growth.
So then so what you're saying is you've now blocked someone who was being honest then, being honest now, but because you felt like they were providing you, giving you a representative.
No, not necessarily that. Just that. Okay, we're not on the same page now. And when I say block, don't take it seriously. But I do block folks, but don't take it seriously.
I felt like you were saying like, Thor's hammer hit the ground.
I felt it. Oh, Thor's
You felt it in the room.
But
no, you're absolutely right. When you do come to that conclusion, that's when the person who you're having a conversation with, that's when you just have to make a choice. Okay, do I want to stay here, or is this not working for me? Whether I grew equally to him or more or less. And what I'm saying is, if y'all had that conversation and now he doesn't want that or she doesn't want that, what's your next move? Are you saying, well, I'm gonna stay there because I love him or her, or am I gonna say, you know what? I respect your decision, but this is where I check out.
Or having a
Well,
better
there has to
understanding
be a
of what y'all want.
communication. There has to be a communication.
Right.
So
So now I want to start having
conversations.
conversations.
Yeah,
Because earlier
it has
we were
to be.
saying we want to have conversations.
Oh, I always want to have a
I
conversation.
always want to have conversations. I
Early in the morning,
I think that's where this generation and the generation that we grew up with differ, because they don't like to have these conversations. The what are we conversations. The where are we going conversations. Oh my God, I can't do that. I don't know.
What are we?
But I don't want to. Right. People, we're relating, and you know what I'm saying. But I mean, I think that comes with time and knowing this person. But you guys always had chemistry, though. Do you know what I mean? Like y'all actually fit in some kind of way, and you had that. If you don't have chemistry with somebody, you have to have communication, because it's just not going to work. Because you throw the dirty socks in the corner, and Denise picks the dirty socks up and puts them in the laundry basket. I mean, I'm just saying, but you have the chemistry that it's going to work. It's going to work somewhere along the line. Even though one thing might drive one person crazy is not going to drive another person crazy, but that you need to know that that's your person, though. If that's not your person, then you need to let them go. You know what I mean?
I think the representative is really just present until a person feels like they can be transparent. And so a lot of times, right, we are in these, whatever these different types of ships are, and you are whoever your person is until you feel like you can be transparent. And you know, if you're a mature person and if you have emotional intelligence, you know that you cannot be transparent with everybody, right? And so the person who you can be vulnerable with, and the person who you can truly be transparent with, are probably the only people who you don't have as much of a representative that's present at any time. And so maybe that's what it really is. And we make it sound like it's a bad thing, like even having the conversation, there's a negative connotation that's associated with it. But it's not necessarily, all of this is not a bad thing. And so if you are smart enough and emotionally intelligent enough to say, I can't be transparent with everybody, and there's a lot of people that I cannot have conversations with, and they're not going to really understand where I'm coming from and what my needs are. And not just me going out and blasting on my business, and you know, a lot of people putting stuff on social media and all these different things, and in person, right? But understanding what can I present and who's going to emotionally support me in the manner of which that I need. And if you can't be that person for me, then you might get what is perceived as a representative of me.
And I kind of jump in on that because I agree with it 100%, but I think that there is this role of gender and sex that plays a part in that. As a man, I don't have that, generally speaking, I don't have that liberty. So if I represent myself to a certain extent, then that representation is accepted. If that representative is there as a safeguard to protect myself, and then you find something else later on, then I'm accused of being disingenuous, being a liar.
I think that's
not necessarily. I'm sorry?
I would say that that's circumstantial. Because if there's a woman that is accusing you of being disingenuous based solely on something of that nature, that means that she's probably not emotional intelligent enough to be in a relationship with you.
I agree.
So I agree 100%. That's where I was leading to when I was going to speak on self-awareness,
Okay.
right? So I think that most of the time we're much more forgiving of our own flaws than we are of someone else's. So for instance, in Jack's situation, and I'm only speaking on what he said to us.
So Jack. Watch the next scene, you're not gonna make her.
You might find someone who's accusing him of not committing when he may have been ready or whatever. It just, you don't get to pick and choose like who's right. I mean, who's wrong or who's right. Like, I know I felt that way. I know I felt like, well, you didn't really know who I was. And when we talk about communication, when you talk about communication, it's like, I did tell you. You know what I mean? There are breakdowns in communication. It's not because you didn't have that conversation. It's just that when you understood it differently than the way it takes two people. You know what I mean?
But you felt that way in relationships, period. Your current relationship, like where have you felt? You said you felt that way.
I always feel like that. I feel like that right now.
I feel like that right there.
Right. I'm still not sure.
At this very moment.
Why are you talking to me?
Because it's like you feel like your partner is taking what they want to take from what you're conveying.
They're taking what they see. I think everybody, all of our past experiences inform the way that we negotiate the present, right? And going forward. So, for instance, you need to do a background check, and you need to ask these questions because the last 3 guys that you went out with, this is just an example, the last 3 guys you didn't ask that question. So now I'm gonna make sure I ask this question because you're not gonna catch me the way this other one was. Right. And so everybody is faced with that. So when you go on that interview that you're talking about, it's like I don't have to just deal with my own stuff. I have to deal with whoever you dated before, right? And so I'm already operating from a...
That's a whole other conversation.
I'm operating from a deficit, right? Right. So in order for me to get up to 0, I got to be, above and beyond just to get to 0. And I'm not even sure if that's my responsibility.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I'm with you with that. See, I'm very, once again, brutally honest, and I will give you that. I will give you that I've been hurt before, but that's why I explained that I've given myself time to heal from what I have gone through before. Right. I don't want to go through this again. I give you it from the beginning. Right. We don't take no shorts, and I'm not going to tell you no lies. I've been through this. I've been down this road. This is where I've been. I don't want to go there anymore.
But are you sharing that on date 1, date 2, date 3? Like, and I'm just asking, like, when does that information come? Because I think we talked about this behind the scenes as well, that sometimes that could be a little like, whoa, like that's or people feel like that's too much too soon to do it. So I know there's a thing like I'm, you know, I don't want children, so like that's always a thing that I say in the beginning, because that could be a deal breaker for a lot of people. So I'm like, oh, that's not going to be the thing. So let me tell you now, so then we don't even have to go there. That's something I feel very strongly about and important to share in the beginning, and I feel it's big, but it's also very relevant. So but I don't know. Are we sharing past hurt? Like, are we doing that in the beginning?
I think it's circumstantial. I think the reason why I was so upfront in my last relationship was because they met me at a time where I had a lot of turmoil, and they were there for that reason. But I was like, listen, if you're gonna be this close, let me give you the 411, because you want to be really, really close. And I need you to know, don't call me talking about something we need to talk, because that's a trigger for me. You know what I mean? Like, I needed that person to know that I have triggers, I have things that I'm working on, I'm dealing with within myself, and you want to be really, really close to me, and I'm really, really afraid of that. You know what I'm saying? Like, you want things that I'm not comfortable with at this moment. Like, we can take it here, but your end game might be way more different than mine. So I need you to know from the very beginning that this is the cross that I'm at. These are the crossroads that I'm at. And because you want to be so close to me, because you knew my kids, you knew my mama. Ooh.
Is that right?
I was emotional. Well, see, you have there's things that you need to know.
And I think within that goes to dating with the purpose.
Right.
But I think on the flip side of that is, so I would like to be in a relationship. I enjoy being in a relationship. However, I'm not pressed to be in a relationship with just anybody.
True. Amen.
So when I start to date somebody, or I'm getting to know somebody, I don't necessarily divulge that I want to be in a relationship, because they automatically assume that I'm looking to be in a relationship with them. I'm like, hold on. I want to be in a relationship, but I just met you. Barely know your last name. And so when we're talking on the phone and we're going out and we're enjoying each other's company, and I'm just getting to know you. It's not me trying to pursue you for you to be my man, because I still don't even know if I like you yet. So I'm just enjoying this. And then at some point, sure, we could probably have a conversation, but I'm not necessarily looking to have that conversation up front, because I don't want you to put pressure on me or think that I have certain expectations of you, because I don't. Just enjoy each other. And I think because I'm 40, people are automatically assuming that I'm pressed to rush into a relationship, and I'm pressed to have kids, and makes dating very difficult.
I do
They're supposed to be married.
I do think, to piggyback on what Matt said about gender roles in dating, and Phoenix and I were talking about that behind the scenes, which is, while you think there's an expectation for men, there are also these very strong expectations for women that men don't even realize they put. I know for me, my representative comes off as very feminine, physically. However, emotionally, I am what is considered masculine, which is a very offensive way of describing my personality to me, because I don't think I fit in that category. But it does come off as masculine, because I'm not very affectionate. I'm not emotionally attached to men. I can get rid of you in a split second if you say or do the wrong thing, and you're dead to me. Don't text me, don't email me, you've been blocked because you're dead. And that's just how I am. I'm not, like I said to Phoenix, a man for me, my people are Jamaican, so we're very aggressive people. But for me, I was always taught from my mother that a man has to love you first, because it takes them longer to get to that point. So for me, my husband feels like I set the tone, but I'm always following him. We got together because he was ready to settle down. So whenever he was ready to settle down, I was like, okay, I'm ready with you. But I wasn't going to make that move, and that's why we never had that conversation. We didn't have that conversation until he was ready to have that conversation. We weren't in love until he said, I love you. Oh, okay, I could be in love with you. Okay, well, I love you too. But you're not getting that from me. Again, these are considered very masculine traits, and it's difficult for a girl who looks very feminine and soft to now come off as very aggressive or
cold.
Yeah,
Which is a
think
term I
that's
use. No, I think
That's the thing I was
you
saying.
you have to be submissive to a masculine force though. And I think if you have somebody who is masculine in front of you that is taking the lead, who is saying that this is what I want, and you fit the mold that I want you into, then like you said, you can step into that role. I think that's more submission than it is masculine, but I just don't think that a lot of people like that term. I don't like.
I was gonna say that's a whole other conversation. That's a whole.
No, I'm not the whole conversation.
There's such a negative thing associated with it.
But it is. There's a negative connotation to it, and it's not cool. But you know,
it's very passive aggressive, because if you take what my wife just said, she said, I could be there. I just was not going to allow myself to be there until he said it.
Right.
That's aggressive. In a very passive way. So it's very passive aggressive. So you're saying you want someone to lead, but you're not really allowing them to lead, because actually you're the leader. So you're saying, that's like telling a child, once you do this, then you can get this.
Well, I think people that have been hurt before are going to do that.
Yeah, but
I think hurt leads that. I think hurt leads that.
But she also indicated her conditioning, right? So she came into the relationship with a certain expectation that was set by her mother, right? Where you said that, you don't do this unless a man does this.
Correct.
And so emotionally you were sort of withholding certain things, right? And so when I hear you talking, I hear you saying a couple of different, so there's this feminine outer representative, right? This facade, right? And it may be authentic, but it's a facade. And then when you dig 3 layers deep, when you get a few more layers in, you have some qualities that are largely associated with men, right? And so, but that is unfair to your partner. It could be perceived as unfair to your partner that you've been withholding, because you said you're not affectionate. So you've been withholding. So as a man, in my own experience, I know that it's difficult to be in that role where you have to lead, you have to do these things, but you're not necessarily seen as a human being, right? You're seen as a man. And so as a human being, you know that I have emotional needs. So if you withhold those needs from me and you still expect me to perform in a certain way, but I'm not being fed, right? And so I'm not fueled to perform the function that you have. Am I making sense?
That also gets into the conversation of masculinity, which could be a whole discussion, obviously.
We can delve into it. I can always come back. So it's okay.
So it's like, what has society? So there's this overarching society, and then there's our own culture, subculture of society, and then there's this whole idea of what were we taught in our own household, right? And so there are all of these different things that's teaching us what does it mean for a man to be masculine from the masculine point of view, but also from the woman's point of view, right? And then the vice versa. So what does it mean to be a woman? And so, and you're saying you have this facade, or you have this outer era that is saying that you're feminine on the outside but cold on the inside. But maybe that's what it means to be a woman now.
Right.
And so like we've allowed over time, which was not necessarily bad, it just is, right? That we've allowed people over time to define whatever it is that we're supposed to be, and we don't have to fit in these boxes. And so we can be, as Jack said, multifaceted people, and it's perfectly fine. But we believe that we have to be black and white all the time. And I personally live in the gray area consistently. I'm great, and I'm okay with that. And I live in my true self by being able, and anyone who knows me knows, right? They can attest to that. Yes. I'm okay with that, and I'm not always right, and I'm not always nice, but usually I am, and I'm usually a lot of fun, but sometimes I'm not. And so it just kind of depends, and that's perfectly fine.
So guys, thank you so much. Amazing dialogue as we continue on. So I just wanted to pose another question, because I think, we've talked about dating, and it's opened us up to so many different topics. So, in regards to dating, I think, Cassandra may have talked about it, but and Matthew as well, there's a lot of cultural differences, when it comes to dating and so forth and so on. So I know that, I can't always speak for I call them our lighter skinned cousins. I can't always speak for, those who don't look like myself, but I know that sometimes there are different expectations put on white, Caucasian, whatever we're calling it, versus us as well. So I thought, we could talk about a little bit about those cultural differences and I guess how it relates to us, because I think, a lot of times you hear that, again, I don't know the studies, but, sometimes Caucasians feel like they need married by 25, 2.5 kids, as a white picket fence. And then for us, that's just totally different. So I think Drew mentioned that there was a study done around, like, is it 80% of African American women aren't married by the time they're 40?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about that. What kind of your perspective?
I feel like it's interesting that, we, as people, we have all these expectations, it seems like, but, when it's compared to other people, like you said, I think that's where a lot of the expectations come from. And, it's a lot of things that go on inside our families and stuff like that that we get scarred from at a really early age. A lot of women have daddy issues. And it's just a lot of stuff that happens, and it really contributes to a lot of things that go on. And, I don't know what goes on the other side. I only can speak from
us, exactly.
Right. But, it's definitely a thing. By the time they turn 30, it's almost like clockwork. They have their 2.5 kids, they're married, and they have their white picket fence, and it's just, I don't know. It's just kind of crazy, just, the dynamic on each side.
Yeah, I think, that comes from a place of, again, I think we talk about family, what we're taught, Steph talked about her family, and I've shared before, in our past videos and just in conversation, I too have, I had two wonderful parents who showed me the definition of love. So, but again, for me, I was like, oh yeah, they're together at 28, by 28 I'm gonna have my kids, and then 32 I'll be married. Like, just literally following in their footsteps, right? None of those things have happened. But that's what I saw, and that's the example that I went after until I became an adult, a grown up, and really decided that I could make choices for myself. And I think that, you look for those examples. I think we talk too about sometimes like on social media and these reality shows and the housewives, whatever it may be. And not to demean them or bash them, but I think people, not only women, but men too as well, you look to those examples of what family or relationship should be because you haven't had it. So now it goes back to why we're not talking, because I see, the basketball wife or the living hip hop star, they're not necessarily having a conversation, but they're yelling at each other, but then they say they love each other, and so, this is what I see. So there are multiple examples of, I think, things that are bad versus, something that's good.
It's funny that you say that because, like, I grew up in a single parent home, right? And my mom, she worked 3 jobs, grandma raised me. You're not married, you don't have kids? Well, because right now, what I know, my career is important, right? I felt like I needed to be established before I could even introduce a mate, let alone a kid, into the situation, right? So at the same time, you fight with trying to figure out who you love, how do you love yourself. So that's my battle. Like, it's hard sometimes, but it's like, all right, I'm just gonna live my best life until I figure it out. But that's just, you know what I mean? Like, that's just, for me, I didn't want to continue that cycle. So those were the choices that I decided to make. And it's funny because, like, now I'm like, oh, Mom, I love you. But growing up, it's like, how often did you really hear your mom say that to you? You knew she loved you, she took care of you. You had the best clothes,
You had lights and you had food.
Right.
I loved
you.
And for me, it's a little different. My parents have been together since I was about 9 years old. They've been married and very affectionate. Before they leave the room, even if they leave the room, they say, I love you, give each other a peck on the cheek. And they've always been like that. And we're very hands-on, like we hug, the whole family hugs. My grandparents been together since they were teenagers. So I was around and I knew, and they had different relationships. So it's not that I thought people did certain things and that's what the marriage meant. But I knew what the love felt like. So it's not that I'm looking for certain roles or people to do certain things. I know what it feels like. I know what that looks like. I know what the respect and just the thoughtfulness and the work that goes into relationships. And so for me, it's not that I never like picked out an engagement ring or thought about this wedding dress that I would wear. I wasn't one of those people that planned to have a marriage and planned I'm gonna have 5 kids or 3 kids. So when I was in a long-term relationship too as well. But when he wanted to start talking about having kids, I started thinking, okay, well, our relationship hasn't gotten to the point where I would want to raise a child. And there's a lot of things that we need to fix in this relationship before I could even think about bringing a child in the world. Because I know what home I grew up in, and I know what type of home I want my child to be raised in. So for me, it's if I can't have a relationship that is able to create that safe, loving environment for a child, then I just won't have a child. And that's where I've come to. But people don't necessarily understand that, okay, well, are you 40, do you want to have kids? Well, sure, the answer is yes. But I want to have kids under these conditions. I'm not just going to have a kid just to have a kid.
And that's so true because, you know, I had friends when I was in my 20s would say, you don't want no kids, you don't have no kids yet. And, you know, I'm very good at looking at people's situation and taking from it. And I would be like, can we curse?
Please.
Your shit is really fucked up. You're asking me? You done had, seriously, you had to move out, y'all fighting, the baby crying, you gotta go back to your mom, back and forth, no stability, and you're asking me that? It's like, I always felt like I needed to have my shit together. I had a mother and father in the home for 30 years. And again, you take from situations and you watch your family, right? And I saw my mother just go, you know what, I can't take this relationship anymore. After 30 years. And moved us out in a weekend. My father didn't even know. And moved us uptown. Now, that, in a sense, coming from being in that family setting that whole time, I'm going to tell you as an adult now, that broke me as a 16, 17-year-old kid. Because now I'm like, well, what is family and relationship supposed to be about? You know what I mean?
I definitely understand that. But I come from no parent household. And that may be a little bit unfair to say about my mom, but for the most part, I had a father who was addicted to heroin, a drug dealer. He was never there, always arrested or not in the house. And my mother chased after those type of guys, and she was addicted to alcohol. So a long part from like birth to 7 or 8, I saw them very rarely, even though we lived in the same household. So I come with a lot of emotional baggage. So I know that I don't know what it is to be loved, or at that time I didn't. So it was like I always craved attention. So for me to show me that you love me, you have to provide me with that attention that I did not get when I was a child. So if you showed me attention, then that showed me love. And I know we're kind of going off of the topic, which I want to circle back around to. So a lot of the things that you were saying about, you knew what love felt like. I don't think that I did. I did not know what love felt like. I knew there were people that took care of me because I went to my aunt's house, I went to my grandmother's house, and I went to my other grandmother's house, and they took care of me. Did that mean that they loved me? Maybe, but I didn't know. So for me, I didn't know what love looked like for a long time, and I wasn't even comfortable saying I love you. Not just coming from a black family, but I didn't know what it was. So how can this be authentic? And even when I felt like it was authentic, I didn't want to say it because still I'm like, I don't want the receiver to feel like I'm being fake. Right. So I don't know that I can give this and say it, even though I think I feel it, where it's going to be received the right way.
This makes me think about one of those, because we talk about how culture really kind of impacts this sort of dating phenomenon, right? And it makes me want to think about one of the most important elements of culture to me, which is language, right? And sort of what we put into that, right? And the power that we give language, right? So we were talking about, you know, one of those things that we mentioned earlier was that, you know, some folks, you know, until you say these things to me, right, then I'll get an understanding that, right? But the idea is that what are you putting into these words or these messages that you're communicating out? And, you know, sometimes when we realize that we're talking, sometimes we aren't realizing that we're communicating those same messages to ourselves. We have these strongholds. Language is very important. If I told you, you know what, I love you, right? I love you, right? There's my interpretation. There's your interpretation, right? And a lot of times we get, to me, and this is just my perception, right? a lot of times we get a little hung up on our hang-ups around language, okay? And I think we start to speak poetically about certain things. Sure, we feel hurt. Sure, we have, you know, emotions, right? But I've never been heartbroken, right? And I've been in relationships that didn't work out, where I felt some kind of way, but my heart is still going, bro. Like, what are you talking about, right? You know what I'm saying? And we use language like, you know, I've been, you know, hurt to the core, and I've been loved, and I've been ripped apart, and okay, great, okay. And I'm not demeaning anybody's sort of experiences, because we all have a story to tell. You know, we all have a story to tell, and some of us, you know, some of the stories are more gritty than others, you know, and some of us have had, you know, a lot of traumatic, you know, things that have happened, and I think as people, right, in focusing on love and light and on our soul shine, so to speak, you know, I think that one of the things that, you know, we need to be responsible and sort of conscious of is what we attribute and the power that we give certain language that we communicate to each other in relationships, short term, long term, whatever, you know.
No term.
Right. But that's the power. Exactly, and that's the power of moist love and language.
Gotta love the
The light moist things around.
a lot of moisture.
I feel like we've kind of touched on a lot of things, and it's clear that relationships do expose who you are as an individual to a certain extent. There are things that you discovered about yourself, if not for the relationship that you were in. And these are I think that's why it's so important to be connected to the right person, because I know there are parts of me that I never knew, that I was very unaware of, or, you know, wasn't comfortable with expressing or exploring who that is, if not for being in a relationship. Because having another person forces you to deal with, and for the majority of I can only speak for myself, but for the majority of our relationship, it has exposed very dark parts of myself. Like, I never knew I could be at a level of anger that I always said I wasn't a chick. But it does expose you. It leaves you relationships can leave you very, very, very exposed. And so I can understand why people are resistant to being in them, because maybe you're not ready to explore who you are. And unfortunately, having another person hold up a mirror to who you are on a daily basis is hard.
That part.
Or the opposite, right? And I totally agree with you that sometimes, first of all, a lot of these discussions have, you know, sort of encouraged me to continue to be single, right? So I'm gonna thank you for that. Right? And it's not necessarily because relationships are a struggle, or I don't appreciate. I think every time you connect with someone in some way, shape, form, or fashion, it is a relationship, right? Exactly. But the idea of, you know, sort of long-term commitment, and I appreciate the wisdom that, you know, I'm receiving personally about just sort of having that mirror reflected to you and things. But I think on the flip side, for me, is that, you know, sometimes we don't take time within our lives to kind of explore ourselves and understand what we truly want. Because I mean, I do think, you know, when you mention this right person, you know, it could be the right person for this season, the right person for this time, the right person for, you know, this period of life, you know. So I appreciate that, and I also appreciate the latter, the flip side.
As much as I am on your side, because I do have a very similar thought process. Being in a long-term relationship has allowed me to see a broader stroke, right? So I have this saying, like, being married is either going to be a job or it's going to be a career, right? So a job is something you do. You work it because you have to. I want to get paid at the end of the week, and I'm going to do it until another better job comes along, right? A marriage is that career, right? You want to do this. It may be hard, you may get paid less than that job that you were working, but it gives you some form of fulfillment at the end of it, regardless of how much you get paid, regardless of, I don't get the same trips I used to get when I was working at that job. Dad, I was making $70K and now I'm only making $50, and it doesn't, because of all of the other things that surround your passion and what you want to do with your life and how that fulfills you, the career gives you all of that. Whereas the job, and then I'll say the job is, you know, dating this one person here, there. And again, I didn't understand it for a very long time. But once I was able to kind of do the comparison of the two, it made me understand how much fulfillment I do get from being in a relationship for a long time and then being able to work on things that I never thought I had a problem with. To be honest with you, I knew I wasn't great, I knew I wasn't perfect, but I didn't think that I was as messed up internally as I was. So, as she said, it forces you to look at yourself in times where not being fearful of looking at yourself, but not even knowing that there was a need to. I didn't know I needed to fix that. How can I fix what I don't know? I don't know what I don't know. So until you say, hey, this is wrong, maybe it should be done this way, and then actually understanding it, and then forcing yourself to then look at that and then change it. So you gotta realize whether or not, some people like jumping from job to job. Some people love it. Like, look, I hate being in the same place, I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do that, and then and some people would prefer to enjoy their career.
I appreciate your perspective, and I'm gonna shut up after this, right? I promise, right? And I also want to push back in a sense, right? I have, within this period of my life, I can say within the past 10 years, if you will, I have not experienced waking up being a happy man on a daily basis. Like, and perhaps I could have that experience with someone. That's great, right? And I'm really loving authentically myself and understanding these things about myself. We talked about certain wounds that we, we have coming in and things that we need to heal and all of that sort of thing. And there's nothing like this experience, right? Just like we have cultural sorts of pressures and things like that when dating and certain perspectives around masculinity, femininity, etc. When dating, right, we have these things about being single as well. You know, we have these perceptions. It's like, oh, okay, maybe that's the young version, or you still ain't do X, Y, and Z, and now you have to elevate yourself to a level. I mean, if that's how you want to consider it, you know, perception becomes reality, right? When you make comparisons about it being job versus career, or et cetera, et cetera. But I think that this is the career for me, right? And I think that, and I'm feeling great. I'm feeling wonderful about it, and I want to, right, encourage people and affirm people who are like me and who are sometimes scared to kind of put that out there because of these cultural pressures. It's like you have to be a certain age and you have to be married. No, you don't. I don't ever have to be married, right? And marriage, and that could not make or break me as far as I'm concerned, right? Perhaps in other people's perceptions, right? And their what they feel is conscious or politically correct, or you know, right? Exactly. So you know, but I'm happy and I'm feeling great about life. Okay, you're talking about living your best life. I feel like this is my best life. All right. I might be married next week, but the point is, I'm feeling great.
Living your nails. Living your nails.
There's somebody watching YouTube like, he be there. That ain't what he did.
And then the other woman is like, nah, I'm not calling him again. He's blocked.
So guys, thank you so much for all of this wonderful dialogue. I think we started off talking about, you know, is 6 dates enough? And we have covered quite a multitude of things, but that's what a Soulshine Conversation is about, right? We start one topic and then we go to multiple places. But it was great. I love the dialogue of today. I don't know that 6 dates is enough. I don't know that 3 dates is enough. I don't know that whatever it may be. But what I do know is this conversation was important. It was needed. It educated me. It affirmed me as well. So I thank you guys for coming and spending some time with me today. It really. So don't forget to please, before you click off this video, like it, comment, share with all your friends, and subscribe. Please subscribe. Tell them subscribe. Hit the little bell. It's there. It's ready for you. It'll keep you up to date with all the soul shine that we have. Much more is coming your way. More conversations as well. And again, thank you to these wonderful people. We thank Uncle Bobby's in Philadelphia. Thank you, Mark. We're excited about today. So thank you guys so much. We will see you next time on a Soulshine Conversation. I'm Mr. Soulshine. Please follow me on social media. IG, I am _ Mr. Soulshine. Twitter, Mr. Soulshine. And Snapchat is also Mr. Soulshine. Facebook is Soulshine Movement. You can find me, type in Soulshine. You'll see this handsome face. It'll be good. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you next time.